Article 15 simply says that the state shall not discriminate. And when I use the term state, what does it include? It includes the legislative and the executive organs of the center as well as the states, plus the panchayats, plus municipality, plus other bodies. Anybody which is entitled to make any kind of rule, regulation, bylaw, etc. Like I can include in this, say, SEBI. SEBI becomes a part of state, RBI becomes a part of state, IRDA becomes a part of state, TRI becomes a part of state. These are all regulatory bodies, right, of different sectors. So they all become part of state. Keep this in mind. Even the action of a private individual becomes the action of the state if it is aided by the state, financially or otherwise. जैसे कि आप समझ लो, पुलिस के साथ मिलकर आपने किसी को अरेस्ट कर लिया. You are a civilian, but you were in the patrolling team which arrested or which held up the individual. Then you will be tried similarly, because you have got the aid of the state and therefore you have become the part of state. So keep this in mind. Even the action of a private individual will be construed as a state action if it is aided by the state. And the meaning of state as far as part 3 is concerned is given in article number 12, which is the first article of part 3, fundamental rights. तो अब देखो article 15 क्या कहता है. It says that the state shall not discriminate among citizens. We already understand the meaning of the term citizen. So this is only applicable over citizens. Only on grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, or place of birth, or any of them. Now the key word here is only. While the state is interacting or transacting with the citizens, keep this in mind that the state, and when I say state, you understand everything. The state shall not discriminate among citizens only on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth, or any of them, means any combination of them. यहाँ पे जो कीवर्ड है वो है ओनली. जैसे कि आप समझ लो that there is an educational institution which is started by the state, and if in that educational institution the state restricts the entry of a people belonging to particular religion, or people of different ethnicity, or people belonging to a particular social group, or people belonging to a particular biological group, or people who were born in a particular part of the country, then that notification or that law or that endeavor will be struck down by the Honorable Supreme Court of India, because it is the guardian of the Constitution and it is the enforcer of the fundamental rights. It will call this action as violative of Article 15, Clause 1. Article 15, Clause 1 guarantees that there will not be any discrimination by the state among citizens only on the grounds of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth. If there are any other grounds over and above these, then that discrimination can be valid. Like say, for example, if you go around hospitals, you will find most of the nurses are females. Whereas if you go to heavy industries like iron and steel, you will find most of the workers are male. Now, prima facie, this looks like a discrimination solely on the ground of a biological nature of the person. But that's not the fact. You see that generally it is found that women have a better care element, whereas men have, generally speaking, they have a better physical strength. I'm no way indicating this that women have less physical strength or men do not have the care element. I'm saying these are crude generalizations, and you know, all generalizations are false, including this one. So keep this in mind that generally speaking, नर्सेस अगर आप देखोगे तो मोस्टली दे आर फीमेल. अगर आप फिजिकल वर्कर्स देखोगे तो कंस्ट्रक्शन वर्कर देख लो, जैसे कि, या तो फिर हैवी इंडस्ट्री में खासकर अगर आप देख लो, दे आर मोस्टली मेल. सो हियर व्हेन द स्टेट वाज रिक्रूटिंग और एनी बॉडी व्हिच वाज रिक्रूटिंग, it was giving force to the care element or the physical strength. If there is a woman who possesses the requisite physical strength, then she cannot be barred an entry into the heavy industry. Similarly, if there is a man who possesses the requisite care element, he cannot be barred from entry into the hospital industry. Like say, for example, there are many male nurses and there are many female workers who are working in the heavy industry. But the sole argument here is the discrimination should not be solely on the ground of any of them or a single of them. Got it? That is Article 15, Clause 1. If we take a look at Article 15, Clause 2, it says that there shall not be any discrimination against any person with respect to access to shops, roads, tanks, wells, restaurants, hotels, etc. There should not be any limitation, any condition, any kind of disability or liability imposed over any person by any other person with respect to access to shops or with respect to access to hotels, restaurants, roads, wells, tanks, or any other place of public entertainment, even a private place which is thrown for public use. जैसे कि समझ लो आपका खुद का लॉन है घर पे, लेकिन आपने उसको ओपन लॉन बना रखा है कि कोई भी आ सकता है उसमें अपनी पार्टी कर सकता है, जो करना है कर ले, ठीक है। लेकिन अगर आपने ये कर रखा है तो आप किसी को फिर एंट्री आप उसकी बार नहीं कर सकते solely on the ground of religion, race, caste, sex, place of birth or any of them. Keep this in mind that Article 15 Clause 1 guarantees non-discrimination by the state. It is applicable over the state, but Article 15 Clause 2 is applicable over individuals as well. It means individuals also cannot restrict this entry. Got it? Article 15, yes, go on, go on. No, it would be construed as state action. Okay, now look here. Article 15, Clause 3 to Article 15, Clause 6. Actually, Article 15, Clause 5 and 15, Clause 6 are later day additions by the 93rd Constitutional Amendment Act and 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act respectively. But anyhow, Article 15, Clause 3 to Article 15, Clause 6 deal with the idea of equal protection of the laws. It means like should be treated alike, whereas Article 15 Clause 1 and Clause 2, it deals with equality before the law. It means absence of any privileged class. अच्छा, एक चीज ध्यान से देखो, when the state takes certain actions for the improvement of the marginalized sections of the society, that action is known as affirmative action. And affirmative action is always for upholding the spirit of equal protection of the laws. ध्यान में रखना, ठीक है? And for this, the state does some sort of discrimination. Now that discrimination is known as positive discrimination. Like say for example, Article 15 Clause 3 says that the state can make laws for the upliftment or for the betterment of women and children. Now, clearly, the state is discriminating here between women and children on one hand and others on the other hand. Got it? But still, this discrimination shall be tolerated because it is upholding the spirit of equal protection of the laws. Women and children, historically, they have been subjected to large amount of liabilities or conditions or limitations. Therefore, this becomes a moral duty of the state to elevate their social condition and economic condition. So keep this in mind that Article 15 Clause 3, it is an example of positive discrimination or affirmative action. Similarly, if you see Article 15 Clause 4, it says what? That the state can make special provisions for the advancement of the socially and educationally backward classes of citizens, including the scheduled castes and scheduled tribe. Again, you see, historically, these sections of the society have been subjected to certain amount of limitations, conditions, etc. Therefore, it becomes the moral duty of the state to help them and to elevate their condition. So Article 15 Clause 3, Article 15 Clause 4, अगर आप दोनों को देखोगे तो they are both espousing the concept of equal protection of the laws. Similarly, Article 15 Clause 5, which was added by the 93rd Constitution Amendment Act 2005, it says that the state can make special provisions for the advancement of the socially and educationally backward classes of citizens so far as such provisions relate to their admission into higher educational institutions. Got it? And using this amendment, the Parliament enacted, because when I use the term state, I include Parliament, executive, everything. The state enacted the Central Universities Admission Act, as it was popularly known, where it offered 27% reservation to the other backward classes in higher educational institutions like IITs and IIMs. Both the 93rd Constitution Amendment Act as well as the Central University Reservation in Educational Institutions Act 2006, both were challenged before the Supreme Court of India, and Supreme Court upheld the validity of both the acts with the caveat that when you are extending 27% reservation to the other backward classes, keep this in mind that you implement the concept of creamy layer. Creamy layer is actually a means test. जैसे मीन्स ऑफ लाइवलीहुड होता है, तो क्रीमी लेयर एक मीन्स टेस्ट है जिससे ये पता लगता है कि आपकी इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन कैसी है. इफ योर इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन इज गुड, स्टिल यू आर इनटू द other backward classes sections of the society, then you will be excluded from the benefits of reservation, because there are enough evidences to show that economic prosperity has translated into social comfort and progress. Got it? So Article 15 Clause 5 talks more or less about that. Article 15 Clause 6, which was added by 103rd Constitutional Amendment Act 2019, talks about the special provisions made by the state in favor of economically backward sections of the society. आपको पता होगा ये एक नया reservation आया है, which is the EWS reservation, and it is 10% of the total number of seats in any educational institution. Keep this in mind that this 10% is over and above the reservation which is presently available to the SCs, STs and OBCs. So it is not within that, it is over and above that. Got it? So that is what is all about Article 15.